Last week, downtown Detroit residents were told they needed to boil their water before drinking it. It was a hassle. It was inconvenient, and it was quite a relief when the boil order was lifted after 3 days. 1 hour north in Flint, it has been a little longer than that since the water has been safe enough to drink. 1,047 days to be exact. Almost 3 years of bottles and filters. 34 months of worry and wondering at what the water may have done to the children. 1,047 days. And while the water tests are increasingly in the clear, Flint families are not.
And we're still fighting for things here in Flint.
Tonight, we'll follow the money. We'll measure the pace of progress. And we'll peer into the faces of Flint as we return to a city that fears its disaster has been forgotten. It's 1,047 days and counting. Failure in Flint. The crisis continues. Those who are fans of Kim Adams, and there are many, already know a lot about her life. Leaving Local 4 to be with her naval officer husband in Rhode Island. Then when the Navy moved them to Mississippi, it turned out they were being moved right into the path of Hurricane Katrina. And you were right there beside her for what became the ordeal of her life. Or so she thought. It wasn't easy, but about a year ago, Kim had rebuilt that life in quite a few ways. She was back in Detroit, now a single mother of 5, and the main breadwinner for her big family. She was again at home on your television doing commercials and the owner of Kim Adams Productions. The hurricane had taken just about everything from her, but it and a tough divorce were finally receding in the rearview mirror. And that's when she found the lump.
So I was making breakfast for the kids, and I bent over to pick something up, and I touched my shirt to hold my shirt, and I felt a lump almost under my armpit, and it was a good-sized lump. And I felt that heat in your body of when you know something's wrong. And I thought, oh God, not now, not now. But I knew.
So she headed straight for a doctor who told her it was likely just a cyst, but have a mammogram and an ultrasound just in case.
She comes back in and she's like, okay, it's a swollen lymph node. Everyone has them. Just keep an eye on it. Nothing changes. Just come back for your yearly mammogram.
Then she talked to her gynecologist, who also said it's probably just swollen lymph nodes. Still bothered, she talked to a surgeon who said the same thing. 4 voices telling her she's fine.
You couldn't find anybody to give you bad news.
No, hard as I tried.
Yeah.
But still, it didn't feel right. And so while it was back to the kids, back to work, back to life, the new year brought a change of health care, which meant a new doctor and a new opinion. A doctor who said almost immediately, we need to skip the biopsy. That needs to come out.
When? And she said, I'd like to do it in the next couple of days. Okay.
After 4 months, there was now sudden urgency. And the lumpectomy led to a 37-second phone call in a library she will never forget. It was IDC, invasive ductal carcinoma, grade 2 to 3, aggressive, and yes, it had spread. How much time had she lost?
All I could think, I have to be honest, was, seriously, I don't have time for this. I don't have time for this. I had the stomach flu the year before for 2 days. The house fell apart. I don't have time for it.
The weight of it all did set in, of course, to the point that she put off the surgery for just a few days to take the kids on a sudden surprise trip to Florida because you never know. From it's just lymph nodes to an emergency double mastectomy. And that isn't the end of it. Her cancer means she'll also be undergoing a complete hysterectomy in the next few months.
Just as a woman, it's, you lose your breasts, you lose your hair. For me, I have to lose everything, my ovaries, my uterus, everything has to go. And it feels like everything that makes you a woman is taken away.
Though, with customary humor, she looks at those 5 children and says her ovaries did all they were supposed to do in this life. And once again, she'll press on. She has to. And then, aside from being back to your television, she is now passionate about what she learned in her cancer odyssey, that you have to be your own advocate. She's a believer in Kim, because it turned out Kim was right. But the one thing she won't have, please, no pity. Through it all, believe it or not, she feels lucky.
You know I hate that poor Kim. hate that.
But do you really feel fortunate with everything you've been through?
Yes, I still do.
That's kind
Every
of
day.
stunning, isn't it? Every day.
Every day. I woke up this morning and took my 5 kids to school and they're healthy. I'm fortunate.
Oh, milk. Yes, that's milk.
The smile Elliot Carter wears is infectious, which keeps spirits around here lifted. Mom and Dad, Leah and Dan Carter, do this same stressful packing routine almost every single week.
When we travel, yeah, we have to do this.
You may remember Elliot Carter. He has a severely rare condition. The 20-month-old can't eat anything except breast milk, which doesn't have enough nutrients to sustain him. Oh, and he can't have ice. That's his snack. Something they found is as Elliot gets older, he's much more aware.
And he literally will crawl on the ground like a dog and look for things.
Once, one of his older siblings accidentally dropped a piece of trick cereal. Elliot found it and ate it. The consequences lasted 5 days.
Severe diarrhea, and he's really in pain and uncomfortable.
To keep him alive, doctors put Elliot on what's called TPN, total parental nutrition. It's the nutrients you need to survive. For Elliot, it worked wonders. But the victory was short-lived. Soon, infections came, along with blood clots, anemia, heart irregularities, and more.
What about like Lysol wipes?
So this next trip is to Cincinnati Children's Hospital, hoping experts there will have an answer.
I don't need a name for what he has. I don't need an official diagnosis. I just want to see a year from now. I want to see 5 years from now. I want to know that he's going to be with us. See you in a few days.
But in typical Elliot fashion, the trip didn't go exactly to plan. While in Cincinnati, his blood work was abnormal. Instead of getting answers, they were running into more problems. He's had blood transfusions.
But we can't even leave the room today.
And at times, because of infection concerns, he was quarantined.
We worry about this not being as worse as it could get. And not knowing what it is or knowing how to stop it is probably the hardest part.
Make that one of the hardest parts. There was a small glimmer of hope that after 3 weeks, Elliot might get to go home.
Mouse?
So his family came. They packed up the room only to be met with more disappointment. More bad tests, and Elliot wouldn't get to leave after all. Dad, his sisters, and brother would have to leave them behind again.
No, I thought he was coming home today.
No. You're gonna have to FaceTime me or thing tomorrow, okay?
Okay.
Are you singing or are you talking? What's your part?
I don't know.
It's okay. All right. You're singing?
Missing out on spring concerts, dances, basically your other 3 kids as you're forced to devote time to one. That's the other hardest part.
We're forced. We're forced to choose, so it's tough.
But just as tough is Elliot. Despite being tied to an IV pole, despite being stuck in a hospital, despite not being able to eat, that smile is the only good infectious thing in the entire hospital.
I don't know that there's a light at the end of the tunnel per se, but I feel like we're heading in the right direction.
In Cincinnati, Nick Monticelli, Local 4.